The grand hall of the Orith Dominion shimmered like a living star. Walls of translucent gold pulsed with light drawn from the system's twin suns, and 1,000 alien dignitaries stood in reverent silence as the Empress entered. Every being bowed. Some knelt so low their faces touched the mirror floor. Even the air seemed to hush as the towering figure of Empress Lyra'thae approached her throne of woven crystal veins. She was breathtaking, 8 feet tall, her body a sculpture of opaline skin and flowing bioluminescent patterns that shifted with her mood. When she blinked, galaxies seemed to flicker in her eyes. When she spoke, the sound resonated not in the ears but in the bones. Her throne, no, her sanctum, was a vast crescent of light designed for one. No one had ever sat beside her. To do so was forbidden. The last being who tried, decades ago, had been reduced to ash by the Empress's own hand, until the human arrived. The human envoy Captain Jonas Hale was the first human ever invited to Orith. His ship, the Odyssey, had traveled 7 months through worm space to reach this empire of living light. Humanity had only recently joined the interstellar Concord, a fragile alliance of over 100 species. The Orith were the most ancient and the most feared among them. Jonas had been briefed 100 times before the meeting. Don't stare at her. Don't speak unless spoken to. Don't make physical contact, and never, ever step beyond the silver line that marks the Empress's presence. But when he entered the grand hall and saw her, something shifted inside him. She wasn't what he expected. He'd imagined a tyrant cloaked in armor, radiating arrogance. Instead, he saw sadness. Behind the perfect posture, behind the glowing eyes that surveyed the room like a queen inspecting insects, there was loneliness. The Empress sat upon her crescent throne. On her right was an empty seat, carved from the same crystalline light. It had never been used. The stories said it was meant for the Consort of Stars, a title that had remained vacant for centuries. Jonas stood before her and bowed low, just as the protocol demanded. Her voice entered his mind. Human, you have traveled far. Her words weren't sound, they were sensation. Like warm light spreading through his nerves. He swallowed, steadying his voice. An honor to be here, Your Radiance. She studied him with eyes that shimmered in gradients of violet and silver. You are fragile, she said, almost curiously. Yet your kind has the arrogance to touch the stars. Jonas smiled faintly. Sometimes arrogance is just another word for courage. A ripple of unease moved through the alien court. No one answered the Empress like that, but Lyra'thae didn't strike him down. Instead, she tilted her head slightly, a gesture of interest. Courage, she repeated, tasting the word. You speak boldly, human. I represent my people, Jonas said. It's my duty to speak honestly. Her eyes softened for a moment, then turned cold again. Honesty is dangerous here. The seat beside the throne hours passed in ceremony. Diplomatic oaths, translations, ritual offerings. Jonas kept his composure, though the gravity in the hall made his body ache. The Orith atmosphere shimmered with particles that felt like whispers brushing against his skin. When the formalities ended, the Empress motioned for him to rise. You may observe the Feast of Luminescence. Sit where you will. Jonas looked around. The hall stretched for hundreds of meters, filled with dignitaries from across the stars, reptilian monarchs, gaseous entities in containment spheres, crystalline philosophers whose bodies refracted the light like rainbows. All their tables were full, all except the one beside the Empress. Every eye followed him as he walked forward. A voice hissed in his translator earpiece. It was his Orith liaison, Terrified. Captain Hale, do not approach her throne. That space is forbidden. Jonas hesitated at the silver line etched into the floor, the boundary none dared cross. The Empress turned her gaze toward him, luminous eyes unreadable. Do you defy your advisors, human? He met her stare. You said I may sit where I will. A faint flicker of amusement passed through her aura. You risk much, Jonas exhaled. So does peace. And he stepped across the line. The hall gasped, as if the air itself recoiled. Dozens of guards tensed, weapons shimmering. But Lyra'thae lifted a single hand, and they froze. She watched as Jonas approached and lowered himself onto the empty seat beside her. For the first time in a millennium, the Empress of Orith was not alone at her table. Whispers of light at first, neither spoke. The silence was heavy, almost sacred. Then she said quietly, "Do you know why no one sits here?" Jonas glanced at her. "Because they're afraid." "Because they remember," she corrected softly. "Once there was another who sat beside me. Long ago." Her gaze drifted beyond the stars visible through the hall's glass canopy. "He was not of my kind, yet he dared to love me. When the council discovered it, they called it contamination. They erased his name from the archives, his world from the maps." Jonas felt a chill. "They destroyed his planet?" "They said it was mercy," she said. "I called it grief." He saw it then, the loneliness that had haunted her since that day. The seat beside her had been a memorial, not a throne. Every century that passed, she remained untouched, untouchable, bound by her crown. Jonas hesitated, then asked softly, "And yet you let me sit here?" Her gaze met his, piercing but strangely human. "You remind me of him." The dance of suns, the feast began. Ethereal music filled the hall, tones that made the stars outside shimmer in harmony. Beings of energy and flesh danced in spirals of color. The Empress raised her goblet of luminous liquid. Jonas mirrored her. She leaned closer, her voice a whisper only he could hear. "Tell me, human, what do you fear?" He thought about it. "Failure. Letting my people down. Losing someone I care about," she tilted her head. "Not death?" "Death's easy," Jonas said. "Living with regret is harder." Something flickered behind her eyes. "You speak like a being much older than your years." "Experience does that," he said. "And maybe loneliness." Her expression softened again. "You understand more than most who have stood here." The Empress placed her hand on the table between them. Her fingers glowed faintly, delicate and powerful. Jonas hesitated, then rested his hand beside hers. Not touching, but close enough for the heat to pass between them. The hall fell silent again. Every being watched in disbelief. Lyra'thae didn't move away. Instead, she whispered, "You are braver than your kind should be." Jonas smiled faintly. Maybe bravery isn't about strength. Maybe it's about being the first to take a seat no one else dares. The breaking of protocol. The Orith High Chancellor rose abruptly. "Your Radiance! This is an outrage. The human defiles your sanctum." Jonas turned, but Lyra'thae lifted her hand again. Silence. Her voice shook the hall like a tremor of the sun. "The human defiles nothing. He honors what all of you have forgotten, the meaning of courage." The Chancellor's glow dimmed in fury. "He must be removed." The Empress stood. The light of her body brightened until shadows fled the room. "Would you challenge me, Chancellor?" The hall quaked with her power. Even Jonas felt his heartbeat stumble under the weight of it. The Chancellor bowed instantly, trembling. "Forgive me, Radiance. I spoke out of fear." "Fear," she said, her voice suddenly sorrowful, "has ruled this empire for too long." She turned to Jonas. "And yet one fragile human walks into our light without trembling." Her hand extended toward him. "Rise, Captain Hale." Jonas stood, unsure what would happen next. "In you," she said softly, "I see what the stars once promised. That courage can come even from those born of dust." She faced the hall. "Let this day be remembered. The throne of light is no longer a place of solitude." The afterglow later, when the ceremony ended and the guests departed in stunned silence, Jonas remained beside her. The twin suns dipped below the horizon, casting gold light through the crystalline walls. She turned to him. "You have changed the course of more than diplomacy today." He smiled. "I didn't mean to. I just didn't want you to sit alone." For the first time, she laughed. It was like hearing starlight sing. "Then perhaps the universe has waited too long for someone like you." He stood to leave, but she stopped him. "Jonas Hale, you have a place here now, should you wish it?" He hesitated, looking up at the stars. "My place is with my people, but I'll return if you'll let me." Her gaze softened. "You would defy galaxies to sit beside me again?" He smiled. "I already did once," the Empress nodded slowly. "Then go human of courage. And remember, light remembers those who dare." Epilogue months later, deep in the human archives. A new star appeared on galactic maps, its designation Lyra's Promise, and on Orith. Within the crystal hall of the Empress, the seat beside her throne was no longer empty. A symbol rested there, a silver insignia of the United Earth Fleet glowing softly. a reminder that once a human dared to sit beside the alien Empress, and in doing so, changed the fate of two worlds forever.